There is no grief as deep as that of a parent who loses a child, at any age. But when a child dies at a very young age, how does God view the little one's eternal destiny? Here are three reassuring reasons for believing that all infants and small children who die go straight to heaven. 1. The character of God. The fact that he is called Father in the Bible, Romans 8:15, is an initial clue as to how he regards the helpless and innocent among us. God is compassionate, gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in mercy and truth, Psalm 86:15. He is also good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works, Psalm 145:9. These traits tell us he would never judge anyone unjustly, such as children who do not yet have the ability to understand the gospel. Interestingly, when the people of Israel were held accountable for their unbelief going into the Promised Land, their children were not, Deuteronomy 1:39. Another example is the 120,000 children of Nineveh, Jonah 4:11. Although the Ninevites were a cruel people deserving of judgment, God had mercy on the city because of the large number of children, who could not discern between their right hand and their left. God's justice accounts for those not able to believe. In Ezekiel 16:20, God refers to children as his, and in Jeremiah 2:34 and 19:4, he refers to them as innocents. Yes, children are born into sin just like everyone else, but their sins are not willful and premeditated. Number 2, the condition for salvation. Small children do not have the ability to understand that an affirmative response to the gospel is the condition for salvation. They do not know what they must do to be saved. Acts 16:30 and 31. Before a child knows how to choose between good and evil, he or she is protected from judgment for sin by the blood of the Lord. If one cannot reasonably accept or reject the payment for sin made by Christ, that person is accepted by God. Since the condition for salvation is accepting the gospel, the inability to do so spares one the judgment of not having done so. Number 3, the compassion of the Savior. Jesus' love for little children is seen on more than one occasion in the Gospels. Indeed, the references to Jesus' interaction with children include the adjective little, as if to highlight his tender compassion toward little ones. Matthew 19:13 and 14, and Mark 10:13 and 14. In Luke 18:15 through 17, the reference is to infants or babies who are brought to him. Perhaps the most meaningful reference is Matthew 18:14, where Jesus says, "Even so, it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish." It could not be more clear. Jesus is not willing for little ones, Greek mikros, to be lost. In 2 Samuel 12, the story of David's child provides additional compelling evidence. When David committed adultery with Bathsheba, she became pregnant with his child. He then had her husband killed. After the child was born, God sent the prophet Nathan to confront David about his sins. As part of God's judgment, Nathan told David that the child born to Bathsheba would be taken away in death. The child became ill, and David fasted and prayed for the baby to live, but on the 7th day the infant died. David then washed and anointed himself and went into the temple to worship the Lord. When asked why David was no longer fasting and mourning, David's reply was, "Now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me." 2 Samuel 12:23. In other words, David was confident that he would see his child again. David believed he was going to heaven when he died, and that is where he expected to see his son. Even though the idea of heaven was not as fully understood theologically in the Old Testament as in the New Testament, David still believed that he and his son would be reunited in the place of God's blessing, where believers go after death. David understood then what we know now to be true. Small children and infants go to be with the Lord when they die.